We are now broadcasting live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The time is now 5:01 p.m. and I would like to call this adjourned regular meeting of the San Fernando City Council to order. For those listening remotely, this meeting was adjourned from the City Council regular meeting of February 1st, 2021 per Government Code Section 54955 and 54955.1. We will be taking up those items of business from the Monday, February 1st, 2021 regular meeting agenda that we were not able to get to this past Monday night. Madam City Clerk, can you please confirm that the notice of adjournment advertising this adjourned meeting was posted in compliance with the Brown Act?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and City Council members, the agenda was posted in compliance with the Brown Act.
Thank you very much. Then at this time, I would like for the City Clerk to take roll call.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Present.
Councilmember Montanez.
Here.
She is. Oh, you are here.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mendoza
Present.
and Mayor Ballin.
Present. We have a quorum. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Now, if we can all rise for the flag salute, and the City Clerk will recite the flag salute.
It is my honor and pleasure. Stand, right hand over your heart, please. And I will begin. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge
to the flag
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
to the
for which it
republic
stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. And at this time, I would like to return to the business we did not get to at the February 1st, 2021 meeting. City Manager, can you please introduce the first item?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mayor. The first item will be what was listed as agenda item number 8 on your agenda, and I have a quick, I have a PowerPoint presentation to help guide us through this item, hopefully a little more expeditiously. So let me go ahead and give me a minute, and I will share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so item 8 is consideration, discussion and consideration of the programs funded through fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant funds provided through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act and the fiscal year 21-22 Community Development Block Grant Program funding year for next funding year. So just to kind of give a little bit of context, and this isn't a super flashy power presentation. It's a lot of words. I just put it together quickly since I had a little bit extra time to get us through this item more concisely. So really quick, on January 19th. Oh, and I did want to make the announcement just for the rest of the council members. I talked to the city attorney today, and he did suggest that at least 3 council members do have their camera on for all items, just so the public can ensure that there is a quorum. So I just would recommend whenever.
I fully trust that people are there the whole time, but we just, sometimes appearances can, that can be a problem too. So
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make that announcement. Okay. Oh, and the second announcement I wanted to make before we got too far is I just want to remind everyone there is a hard stop at 7 p.m. tonight. We do have a Transportation and Safety Commission meeting that stops at 7, and they use the same YouTube. They need the same YouTube and Zoom account. So we do have about 2 hours, which should be plenty of time, but 2 hours to get through these 3 items. So on January 19th, council appointed an ad hoc committee to work with city staff on, and that's Councilmember Pacheco and Councilmember Rodriguez and the city's CDBG consultant who is joining us tonight if there are any questions. And the ad hoc discussed both the special allocation of the CDBG coronavirus funds as well as potential programs to be funded in from next year's CDBG allocation. And that ad hoc met on January 22nd and January 25th. The ad hoc, again, council members Pacheco and Rodriguez put together some guiding principles, discussed some guiding principles for programs for CDBG for these next few years, for next year's allocation and this year's. And the first guiding principle was really to provide temporary relief to the city's most vulnerable residents and businesses. And the second guiding principle was to leverage the opportunity to give applicants, through these programs and in our touch points with these vulnerable residents, you leverage that opportunity to give the applicants access to additional information, tools, and other resources available to help them out through such a difficult time. So we'll start with the CDBG's coronavirus. This is the special allocation. And just to remind everyone, this is the 136,000 or so that was a one-time allocation that was provided to many cities as part of the first CARES Act. So it's a federal allocation to be used for, and the council approved the following two programs: a residential food distribution program, which provides non-perishable food and cleaning supplies to residents, and then a personal protective equipment for businesses program that provides gloves, masks, automatic hand sanitizer dispenser, disinfectant, signage, floor decals, things like that, to assist businesses with complying with the county health order. So the ad hoc, and there were some funds, probably approximately 60 to 70% of the funds have already been expended from that one-time allocation. With those remaining, there was about 40,000 remaining. Council wanted to just discuss the programs and see if there may be an alternate use. So the ad hoc discussed those programs, the existing programs. They kind of applied the guiding principle of reaching most vulnerable populations and then using that to get them additional resources. So based on that, the ad hoc is recommending that we do use the remainder of that special allocation to continue the residential food distribution program and the business PPE program. But they are recommending a slight change to that, and that is basically directing staff to develop informational materials on additional assistance and resources that are available to both the residents and those businesses, and put that information into a folder or some other way to get that information in. So whenever we do those distributions of either residential food or business PPE going forward, that informational material is given out along with those food and PPE distributions. So that would meet guiding principle number 2 for those coronavirus, for the existing one-time allocation. For the regular allocation, so again, we would be talking about next year's allocation, which starts after July 2021. They looked at a few programs, and just to kind of remind council, in order for us to start receiving money in July, early in the fiscal year, our CDBG funding next year, we must identify and submit the programs that we want to spend that money in to the LA County Development Authority. In February or early March, those need to be submitted to LACTA in order to set those up, set those projects up and have them approved so that we start receiving funding in July and August. We don't necessarily need the exact specifics done by that, but we do need a general outline, a summary of the objectives for the proposed programs. And just a reminder, for next year, that amount is about $230,000, just a little under $230,000. And in public service programs, so that includes rental relief programs, utility bill assistance, other public service assistance. that is capped at 20% of the total allocation. So just about $46,000 is the maximum you could spend on those type of programs out of the $230,000 that we would be getting for next year. So the CDBG ad hoc came up with two different programs that they're recommending. One is focused on residential assistance and one is focused on business assistance. So the residential assistance is in front of you right now. This is the water and sewer utility assistance program. So the recommendation is that the city create a water and sewer utility bill credit for residents impacted by COVID-19. So the budget on this would be the $45,980 because this would be considered a public service, and at this time it's capped at 20% of the total allocation. Michael Neal, our CDBG consultant, could get a little into whether or not they lift that cap, and if they which was lifted last year due to COVID. If that cap is lifted, then we could, rearrange how much is funded for each program. But at this time, that cap is still in place. So the most we could allocate toward this utility assistance programs just under $46,000. The program would be to provide a utility bill credit of up to $500 per recipient. That would really just be the high point. The actual credit may be less. We could decide to do $250 credits, and that would increase the number of recipients that we could award it to. Staff did a very high level sort of, we do have quite a few $100,000 in outstanding water bills or delinquent water bills at right now. And if you break that down kind of per residential household that's delinquent, it does work out to about $400 or so per household. Some obviously are more, some are less, but so that's why we kind of have the up to 500. But again, we just need to submit a summary. We can always decide the exact amount, in the coming months before we roll the program out. And then the second piece of that, so that meets guiding principle number one of providing assistance to the most vulnerable population. The guiding principle number two would be working in finding a third-party firm, again, from the ad hoc's perspective, preferably a nonprofit organization that really, works to connect applicants with other available resources and programs that are offered by the county or the state or even federal governments, such as rent or mortgage assistance, credit card debt assistance, unemployment assistance, student loan debt assistance, food insecurity, programs like that people taking advantage of that qualify for this bill credit, whether or not they actually got the credit. If it's oversubscribed, we would probably need to do some sort of lottery system. But whether or not you got the credit, the idea is that the applicant would still qualify for counseling, for these free counseling services, to at least connect them with resources. The process would be San Bernardino residents would need to complete and submit an application with some socioeconomic information. And then also some optional questions on the application that just ask them their areas of most need, and authorizing a third-party servicer to contact them, so that when they're contacted, someone already knows, oh, I have a lot of credit card debt and I really need help, looking at that. And then they can kind of connect them with different debt, credit card debt companies that specialize in that. So that's the idea. On the process. Marketing, we would include the application and all the water and sewer bills, advertised through email, social media, website, local newspaper, those type of avenues. And again, depending on how many credits, the amount of the credit and how many credits there were available, if we receive more applications than credits, we would use some sort of lottery system to randomly, pick those that would get the credit. But again, all applicants would receive financial counseling services or have the ability to receive that. So that's the residential focused recommendation for next fiscal year. The business focused program that the ad hoc came up with is a business grant program. And in the budget, this is the 80% left over, 183,925. And this would provide a business grant of up to $5,000 per resident. again, the discussion was, maybe between 2,500 and 5,000, but the actual grant amount would be less, maybe less due to maximize the number of residents. Again, that detail can be worked out later. That would be tenant one, helping the people that are the most vulnerable. Principle two is then again, similar to the residential side, provide some kind of financial counseling and technical assistance through a third party, nonprofit organization that could connect applicants to business related resources, right? So lease assistance, loan application assistance. If people need to shift their business model more to online and accept credit cards, or put up a website, take online payments, that type of thing. So at least there's someone that can help connect them to those resources to help shift their business. So that's the guiding principle number 2 on connecting applicants with resources, the vulnerable population with resources. The process, similar again to the residential, would be, completing and submitting an application, as well as optional questions from the applicant that identify their area of most need. Marketing, again, we would market through the San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, the Mall Association, city emails, the website, social media, the Restaurant Association, and local newspaper. Awards, if we received more applications than there were grants available, a lottery system, to kind of randomly select the winners, but then the applicants would receive technical and financial assistance, whether or not they won the grant award. So the next steps, so tonight we're looking to receive direction from City Council regarding the current program, the coronavirus funding programs, and again, that's the residential and the business PPE and residential food distribution, which is recommended to continue with that added the added characteristic that we give them information to all of the applicants that receive food or PPE. The second thing that we need tonight is at least some guidance on what next year's programs would be. If we get that guidance, then we'll hold a public hearing after 14 days public notice, which will probably push us into the first week of March that we actually have that public hearing. Then we can finalize, then we can submit that to the county and start getting us in the queue for funding for next year. And then after that, we would recommend that we continue to work with the ad hoc to finalize a recommendation of the details for each program, regarding what the actual grant size is and some other, some other details, and then come back to council at a later date so that we're ready to go early next fiscal year. So with that is staff's presentation. And it may be prudent now to go to the ad hoc committee members if they have anything to add.
Yes, I would like to go to the ad hoc members, and I believe that's Council Member Rodriguez and Council Member Pacheco. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Council Member Pacheco, would you like to give some input?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Kimball. At the outset, I would like to just commend staff, our consultant, Mr. Neal, my colleague, Ms. Rodriguez. We had to hit the ground running. Obviously, these are important emergency type situation. And I found, the group to be very productive and efficient. And also, we conducted ourselves with a high level of professionalism and decorum. I always felt respected. I always felt listened to. And I thought we had a really great working group that I'm hopeful, can inform my work going forward as well. As far as these programs, we try to implement some of the ideas from the broader council in terms of the water relief, in terms of continuing the meals and the PPE. And I think that we have a solid mix of business relief, of PPE and coronavirus prevention, focused items for the community as well. And, I think that for next year's allocation, it's important for us to try to rally around some shared goals as well. I think the business grant program also has a lot of merit and is very sensible. And I don't think that, anyone's looking for a handout here. No one is really looking for a free lunch. But we just need to give a little nudge, right? We're just extending a helping hand to our business community because they really have been, hit very hard by the pandemic, not only by the health issues with their employees, perhaps with their own health, but also with, the detriment to the local economy. And so I think that we need to act boldly and we need to act quickly. And I'm fully confident that we can rally around these goals together, implement sensible policies going forward, working very well with each other and with staff, and execute at a high level for our residents and our businesses. So I'll leave it at that. And obviously I'm able to chime in with any other questions as well. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nick, for that presentation, and Councilman Pacheco for your comments. I think I just want to add, I guess, a little more of just like a high level of what our effort was. And it was really our immediate was, again, recognizing the two programs underway with the existing coronavirus relief resources, continuing those efforts, but finding ways to make it more sustainable. We know that, this food program is reaching people and helping people. And I know Councilwoman Mendoza, it's been really important to you that we continue that program. And I think our hope is that by adding into each bag, right, these lists of additional resources, we can connect people to something that's more ongoing. Because I think we have resources for about 2 more events. But just like you, we want to make sure people have access to food beyond that. So that's why in our immediate, in addition to adding resources to the food program, any business that goes through the PPE program also knows, like, what are the loans available? What are the new grants through the county? Because while our CDBG resources are limited for the city of San Fernando, we just got to leverage the heck out of everything that's available through the county. And the only way to do that is to let people know it's there. And that's why for the next phase, right, our next tranche of money at the next fiscal year, we want to support individuals and businesses in pursuing those resources. So right now we have the resources to promote awareness and continue what we're doing, but moving forward, we want to provide the actual support to help them navigate that. Because as we know from our constituents, it's not easy always to pursue the resources that are available through the county. And so we want to add these different supports so that people can. Mayor Ballin, I know that it was really important to you that we address water bills, especially because it's clear that people are falling in default and people are struggling. What we're hoping is that with pairing that with financial coaching, it's helping us target, again, to reach those most vulnerable people in our community. If someone's not able to pay their water bill, like we know, right? Like they're struggling overall. They might be part of our food program. They might not be making rent. And so our effort is really to ensure that no businesses and no person in our city is displaced. We want to preserve our community through this crisis. With that, also, I wanted to mention, Councilmember Montañez, a lot of your interest for these funds, when we discussed it at the meeting before last, since this was split into 2, a lot of your interest was about, preventing the spread of the virus and getting vaccinations for our community. We discussed how to enhance what's happening now. We recognize that the PPE we're providing to businesses, especially because they're reopening, is really vital for them to prevent the spread for their employees in our community that's going to those businesses. Within the food baskets, the way that it's described in the current grant allocation, we can add more things to that. And so that's why we had talked a little bit last council meeting. How are we going to help our community who's getting sick right now? And that's where, like, there are some creative things about using the shower curtains. Can we add shower curtains to the bag so that people have some sort of a divider when a family member is sick? Or just basic things like thermometers so people can check their temperature and know if they're getting sick. So we also welcome any feedback of other things we can add to that, because I think the language is broad enough that we can be creative and ensure people have what they need. And obviously, we're still continuing our advocacy through NIC to get more vaccines to our community. I think that's really all I wanted to cover. I'm really hoping you all, consider and support these recommendations, and we're here to answer any questions. And I just want to shout out to Councilman Pacheco. This was a really great first experience in an ad hoc. Over 2 weeks, we met 2 times and are coming to you with recommendations. And I'm really glad that we were able to work with staff so well to be so quick and efficient to getting this done for our community. That's it for my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Montanez? You're on mute.
Okay, there we go. Good timing. Okay, so I mean, I strongly support, any kind of resources and all kinds of resources that we can get into the hands of our community. A lot of residents that are clearly having a difficult time paying water bills and utility bills and rents, and people still, a high percentage of folks still unemployed. So as much as we could get into the hands of residents, and then the business community, we all know is having a hard time. So being able to, work with the business community to get resources in to help them pay for outstanding debts as well, permits and fees that the city charges, I think it's a really good thing. I do hope that this sets the new standard for how we allocate the money. You have heard me say before, I was really disappointed that of the $311,000 that we received last year with the coronavirus funds, that special one time, that fund, essentially most of it went into just paying the city bureaucracy. And what I want to make sure that we do with with the community development block grants money and the coronavirus assistance funds, that the money actually goes as much as possible into the hands of residents and struggling business owners right now. So thank you for coming back with a proposal that I think really reflects more what these resources are supposed to go into.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy that you've recommended to continue the food distribution program for the residents and the PPE, because it will be really it will be needed by the merchants once they reopen their business. I did have a question in regards to the allocation of the funds. I just was wondering why there was no rental relief included in this, or was it considered, and just kind of feedback from you. But I'm happy with what you've presented to us as recommendations. I just kind of wanted to find out what your thoughts were on that.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. And I'd like to start off quick, and then obviously the ad hoc can jump in. It was definitely discussed by the ad hoc as a potential use. I think one of the high barriers to that program is it's part of that 20% cap, so it's a relatively small amount, and the rental assistance is a very administratively burdensome program. So quite frankly, most of that 20% would most likely be used up in would need to be used up in administration, and leaving less that would even be available for rental relief. But I would like to have our CDBG consultant Michael Neal kind of comment, because they do work on rental relief programs in other cities, and he had some good insight into, especially for a city like ours that doesn't already have an established Section 8 or an established housing department. It's a little bit more of a challenge to implement. But Michael, if you can kind of add some flavor to that before the ad hoc comments.
Certainly. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. So much of the focus of the funds, the coronavirus relief funds, other funds that have gone through LA County have gone into rental assistance programs. And as we discussed in our ad hoc meeting, the county has actually discouraged cities from having their own rental assistance programs, just because the program that they administer countywide has been very, very successful and is available to people in the city that may qualify. One of the things I think that we could do continue to do, because I know we did this as the rental assistance program rolled out, is just to ensure that anybody that's interested in applying for a rental assistance knows what programs are out there. And, if we can guide them in the right direction in any way, I think that's about the best that we can do. As the city manager mentioned, these programs, rental assistance, are very administratively heavy. We've assisted with other cities and with the county running their program in general. And it's really complicated making everything come together between the renters and the landlords, and the documentation requirements are constantly shifting. And it's been very successful, but it is a challenge. But the bottom line is there are hundreds of millions of dollars in that fund right now, and we just want to direct people to that application process and help them in any way with the program as it's already set up.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
No, go ahead if you wanted to add something.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to add that for myself, my consideration was not about the administrative burden, but I think a guiding principle that we didn't write in the report, but it was all about like, how do we stretch these dollars as far as they could go, knowing that rental relief is needed, and also just like basic tenant outreach, right? Like, what are your rights for landlords? Like, what are their responsibilities with these ever-changing laws? I think that definitely the effort is that if these people are tied to like a financial coach, they're going to have access to resources so people can apply to the programs that already exist. So if there was like a gap and there was no rental assistance available, I definitely think we'd advocate for putting money into that. But there's so much money available now and coming down that I think we just need to prepare our residents for applying for those opportunities to get some relief.
Sounds good. Thank you. Great plan. I do have a couple more things.
Yes, I just want to make sure.
Okay. On the application, when the businesses and the residents complete these applications for the funding, maybe we can ask them a couple of more questions. Now we're more into COVID, and it's going to be ending, and to maybe get an idea of what their needs are. What are their most important needs? And maybe if there is additional funding, we'll know how to address those needs or their high needs within the community. If there was a couple, I know we had discussed it when I was on the prior COVID program. Michael, did you want to say something?
Sure, we could certainly do that. We might have even, I think, in the initial applications that were developed, had some places where people could kind of indicate what they were looking for as the various packages were put together. But absolutely, that could be included as well.
Yeah, and then that was the discussion among the ad hoc, was to have additional questions on there. You may not on the residential food distribution, we actually also had a survey that people could check off, types of food that they were interested in to assist guiding staff what to purchase. So it would be the same idea that, again, the ad hoc discussed that as well, adding questions to try to identify people's greatest needs. So when we do have those financial resources, financial counseling services, they go in armed with some information on what the person is looking for.
Okay, sounds good. I would like, I support what you have. I would like us to consider the funding, maybe if there are changes that when it comes about, once we know how much is owed on the water bill, and maybe reallocate it if necessary, then that we consider that in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the ad hoc committee. You did a really great job. I'm really glad that you met so quickly. That's really key right now. And I like the idea that you're recommending a thermometer be included in whatever we give away. But I want to recommend one more item that's really critical, and it's the oximeter to measure blood oxygen levels. And I'm looking at here on Amazon. There's one for $19, and that's really key when you possibly have COVID and your oxygen levels are dropping, and there's a certain point that you just have to call an ambulance or go to the emergency. So keep that in mind. That would be my recommendation, and I'm open to a motion.
Sure, I
motion-
would, go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez, please.
I
and I'll
motion to
second you,
approve
too.
the recommendations from the ad.
And I would like to second.
And if we could just friendly add to that motion, if we could just also to continue to work with the ad hoc to finalize the details of the program as well.
Okay, the motion as stated by Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Pacheco, and the little add-on by the city mayor. Is there a second? Oh, you did second it.
Yeah, I'll second.
Yes, you did.
Mhm.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza,
Yes.
and Mayor Ballin.
Yes, the motion passes, and at this point, we are on item number 9, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to start off with a brief presentation, and then I'll probably, if we can then go to Councilmember Pacheco, because a lot of these he had brought up in 2 weeks ago, so he can add additional flavor. So let me again share my screen so that I can be a little bit more concise and go hopefully a little quicker. So everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the local COVID-19 stimulus programs. Just a reminder, last council meeting, January 19th, Councilmember Pacheco identified a number of programs that he would like city council to consider as part of a local stimulus package in COVID-19 response. During the COVID-19 response discussion, city council agreed, had a consensus and agreed to consider it on the next city council agenda, which brings us here tonight. Subsequent to that meeting, and it was sort of serendipitous because we'd already had the schedule, but the executive board of the San Fernando Chamber of Commerce met with staff to talk about potential potential business assistance programs. And quite frankly, most of them were very closely related to what Councilmember Pacheco had brought up with fee waivers, where the city could waive fees, and then also looking at a delinquent business license penalty amnesty program, and also looking at waiving the mall and parking maintenance fees. And I'll get into those a little bit later on, but so there is a desire from some of the business community as well to get some assistance as we kind of start to see that light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine, and many of the businesses that have made it this far, we just need to get them through the next couple months, and then hopefully we can open up more widely. So this is something that we may be able to assist them with. And just to kind of a little context, so the city council has worked hard over the last 6 years or so to really return San Fernando to financial stability. So we ended June of 2020, last fiscal year, with actually a $3.6 million reserve, or rainy day fund. Additionally, at the beginning of this year, the city council took steps to reduce some personnel costs, to adjust our costs to our reduced revenues due to COVID, and we implemented a retiree incentive program, which ultimately should save close to $1 million per year in staffing costs. And then lastly, the San Fernando voters back in November approved a 1/4 cent sales tax measure SF that will go into effect in April of this, so 2 more months. And we should start receiving some of those funds in June. And that's projected to raise approximately $750,000 next fiscal year, and then approximately $1 million a year thereafter. So due to those steps, San Fernando is in a much better financial position now than even a year ago to offer some of these local financial assistance programs through temporary fee waivers and interest-free payment plans. So I'm just gonna go, I just have 2 slides. The first slide are the business stimulus programs that were discussed. The first one is waiving business license processing fees. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't the business license tax portion. So when a business every year, they get they renew their business license, there are a few components to that. One is they report their gross receipts, their income from the prior year, and they pay a local tax based on that income. And the second part is they pay approximately $25 application fee. So what this would not be waiving the tax, the income tax they owed based on, you know, what they earned in the prior year. It's actually just waiving the $25 processing fee. So that you know, while it seems like a little bit, you know, every little bit, I think there's a few different programs as they add up, you know, those can add up to some real money. So that would be, and that would apply to all businesses that renew in 2021 only. All businesses would have that waiver of the application fee. The interest-free payment plan for business license, again, this is not necessarily, this wouldn't be a cost to the city. It's just basically for those businesses that may struggle to make their payment. Business license are due by February 28th. So there may be some businesses that don't have cash on hand or can't make that payment right away. So what we would propose, and again, this isn't necessarily a cost to the city, it's just a timing of when we receive the revenues, is have an interest-free payment plan that the business could sign up for. They would report their revenues and then basically could repay that, you know, their tax. Say I'll just throw out a number, say it's $500 that they owe. They could repay that interest-free over 10 months. So they would pay $50 a month for the 10 months, and then they would become current, and there wouldn't be any additional delinquent fees or anything added to that. The third item on here is a business license delinquent fee amnesty program. You may remember we actually did this probably 5 years ago. And that's when a business doesn't pay their business license in any year, they become their tax portion. So say the $500, they become delinquent. If they don't pay by March 1st, there's a 10% penalty. And then every month after that, there's an additional 10% penalty. So if you're a full year late on your business license, it basically, if you owed $500, you basically doubles to $1,000 with penalties. So sometimes those penalties become a huge burden if there's 2 or 3 years that you weren't able to pay your business license. So this amnesty program would only be reducing, you know, they still would be responsible for those past due and those past year business license, the tax portion of it, but the city could look at putting them on a payment plan and waiving the delinquent fees as long as they get current, you know, over that payment plan, say 10 months or so, 10 or 12 months, they become current on their business license. That way they're current, you know, with the city on their business license. The city receives the revenue that they should have otherwise received, but then we would waive the delinquent penalties that can be substantial and do end up, you know, making it very difficult for some businesses to become current. The next two items are actually specific to the downtown area or downtown business area. The mall maintenance, there are 3, if you have a business in the downtown area, you pay 3 special assessments. One is a mall, and I'll just call it a mall marketing charge. So basically those people on the pedestrian mall on San Fernando Road pay sort of a marketing fee, and then that is used as the budget for the mall association. So that would, you know, they use those funds to market and do certain programs to increase pedestrian traffic on the mall. So that fee, because it doesn't come to the city, it's not something we could really waive. It's the mall association's budget, so to speak. You know, there's no recommendation to do anything with that amount. That would still be collected. However, the next 2 items, the mall maintenance assessment and the parking maintenance assessment, both of those items are special assessments that are collected by the city each year, again, as part of the business license payments. And then the city uses that to then maintain the parking lots and maintain the mall area, pick up trash, do sidewalk, you know, do washing the streets and sidewalks, that type of thing, tree trimming. So one of the programs that we could do is waive, just for 2021, waive those maintenance assessments for both the parking and the pedestrian mall maintenance. Still provide the same level of service, just waive those fees. And so, you know, that ends up being a pretty good little stimulus for, you know, it's at least a few $100s, but could range up to $1,000 or so for some of those some of the bigger vendors, some of those businesses on the mall, which could really help get them sort of over the next few months as they you know, as we try to get to a herd immunity, so to speak. And then the last on the business fee, the business fee stimulus program is non-construction permit fee waivers. This is a relatively small part, but really these are, we mostly encroachment permits. So whenever a business needs to, is looking to do some painting or or wash windows, and they have to set up scaffolding or something in the public right of way to do that maintenance on existing businesses, there is an encroachment permit. It's about $100 that we charge, but if for the next year, so it's not a substantial amount of money, but it does kind of, if you're trying to maintain your property, it's just an extra cost. So we would, so one of the programs is just waiving those non-construction related permit fees so that, property owners and businesses can do maintenance to keep their businesses looking nice and presentable without that added cost of a permit. So altogether, and those all would impact the general fund in the to the extent in the manner that they're actually reducing revenues that we would receive. So altogether, that would be reducing a potentially estimated reduction in general fund revenues of approximately $200,000, and that would happen in this fiscal year 2020, 2021. So that wouldn't impact next fiscal year's budget. It would impact this current fiscal year's budget. On the residential stimulus side, again, this wouldn't necessarily be a cost, but we could offer, and we've already started reaching out, quite frankly, to people that do owe back water utility bills and offer an interest-free payment plan. This is just an administrative thing. It's not a cost, but it would be, it would be sort of waiving delinquent penalties and putting them on a plan to get them current on an interest-free basis. The parking ticket reduction program, which the city council did approve earlier in the year when there was a more strict stay-at-home order, that basically reduced our parking tickets to the minimum. If you receive a parking ticket, we still have to pay $25 to the court system to process that ticket, even if it ultimately gets waived. So we if it's a $50 ticket or a $60 ticket, we had a program earlier this year that would reduce it from $50 or $60 down to $25. So which is the minimum that we would charge. So that's we could reinstate that program. I put an estimated cost of about $150,000. It's hard to know exactly who would, take advantage of that program. That may be on the high side, but I put it on there. We made an estimate, and it also depends on how long that program runs. The last two would be to continue the local transit support. So, some of our residents that use public transit that need to get to work in their essential positions and have to use our local transit system. We could waive those fees. Again, we did that earlier this year for a bit, where I think it's a 50 cent fare. That comes out of the Prop A fund. It's not necessarily a general fund cost, but we could waive that fare again for residents to make it easier for them to get to their job, or cheaper to get to their jobs, or wherever they need to go to make a grocery store run or whatever it is they use our local transit for. And then this last one was one that council member was near and dear to Councilmember Pacheco's heart. I'm sure he'll give a little flavor on this, but was really look at rehabbing a few of our local bus stops that are in the worst shape, so that they are a little more attractive for people, again, that are using our local transit to get to work or to get to the where they need to go for groceries or other buy other essential needs. So just a final statement, again, so we did do a preliminary, I mentioned all the steps council had taken to put us in a better position to be able to offer that in this fiscal year. Preliminarily, I also worked with Diego earlier last week and a little bit this week to look at just do a very high level preliminary review of the general fund budget. It's hard to do this early in the year because our revenues kind of lag by 2 or 3 months. So really we only have about 3 months of revenue data, not a full 6 months, but comparing us to last year where we were pre-COVID, we're actually in pretty good shape as far as revenues that come in. Again, we're not dependent on the tourist industry or the movie industry, so to speak. Many of these industries that got hit the hardest. So that does help us. We do have many essential manufacturing businesses and and large businesses like Home Depot that have continued to do pretty well. So so those things, so we're in a decent spot, even as compared to last year. That staff does think that we would be able to absorb a stimulus program and still be on track to have revenues meet expenditures for this fiscal year. And just if council does tonight direct staff to move forward with any of these programs, we'll return we'll adjust the budget as part of the mid-year budget review in March. And in many of these programs, we'll probably issue executive orders to implement as soon as possible, especially the business license related ones, because a lot of those fees are charged through the business license, and the business license is due February 28th. So we want to make sure we have direction to be, if we're going to waive those fees as part of the stimulus program, we do that now so that we're not, when businesses renew over the next couple of weeks, those are not on their bill, and they can immediately save those funds. So that's all staff has on this one, and Councilman Pacheco may want to add some additional flavor.
Yes, Councilman Pacheco, looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. At the outset, before I forget, I do just want to make the motion to consider all these things together. I'll leave it on the table for now, and I'll get into it here. So obviously our small business needs our help here in San Fernando. And I just want to say at the outset, nobody's trying to break the bank here. I absolutely recognize the really hard work that the former councils over the years and staff have done to balance our budget. I am old enough to remember that, in 2009, 2010, San Fernando was, $5-6 million in the hole. And a lot of hard work and a lot of tough decisions went into balancing our budget over the years. And it was only through prudence and courage that we even have a $3.6 million rainy day fund to begin with. And so these measures, we're not going at it with a sledgehammer here. We're using a scalpel, and we're trying to use sensible targeted relief for our small businesses that aren't going to blow a hole in our budget. As a matter of fact, because of Measure SF and because of the improving economy, even when these measures, I hope, are passed, we should probably even see the $3.6 million budget either stay at the same level or even, grow. And so with that in mind, I think that, I won't go through each one individually, but a lot of these are just fees that, we tack on because, it takes admin time. It takes a lot of, staff time to handle these parts of, liaison with our business community. And so, they're still relatively small and relatively targeted. And Mr. Kimball said, it's not like we're waiving, business taxes in its entirety. And another point that I want to make as well, I am fully in support of sunsetting these waivers, so to speak, at the end of this fiscal year. These aren't meant to continue indefinitely, right? These are meant as targeted coronavirus related relief efforts, and so the sad thing is, the pandemic is not over yet. And we're at a point right now where if we can just add a little bit of fuel to the jet engines of our local economy here, as we open up, as we get out there and shop more, as we have these development projects going, I think it's an opportune time to really think about what we can do. And so I stand with the residents, I stand with the business community, I stand with the wellness of our residents, and together, we can overcome any obstacle. We can overcome this pandemic, and there definitely is a brighter future ahead of us here. And I think these efforts dovetailing with the hard work of the staff and the ad hoc on the CDBG, and now, you know, approved by council. So thankfully, those efforts will dovetail very well and also offer an opportunity to catalyze our local economy. And so, you know, these efforts put San Fernando first, and they also go a long way along with forthcoming federal and state relief. I'm very optimistic that the Biden administration and the Senate and the House of Representatives will come around a large stimulus bill that will provide state and local relief. And so I'm optimistic that we might even be able to secure more funds, you know, from Washington, D.C. And so it's with that in mind that rather than waiting and hoping, I think that if we act now, because of the decisions we made to balance our budget over the years, because of the voter approved tax measures that we've had, I think that, you know, it can really go a long way to offering a helping hand to everybody. And so waiving some of these things, and I think, you know, I do want to speak to the more, excuse me, transit oriented efforts here as well. I think that, you know, people are afraid really to use public transportation right now, and rightly so. And I think, you know, the bus drivers are nervous, you know, or trolley drivers are nervous about, you know, exposing themselves and potentially contracting COVID as well. And so I think if we take this opportunity to make our bus stops a little cleaner, a little safer, if they, you know, are more welcoming, I think, you know, at a time when, you know, their use isn't so high. And I think that's the other nugget here. I would really like for, you know, our public works department to identify, you know, the really busy bus stops here. You know, we're not looking to spend a lot of money to rehab, you know, stops that nobody uses, right? We're talking San Fernando Road, we're talking Glen Oaks, we're talking these areas where a lot of people, you know, go. They need to throw away their trash. They need to wait. You know, they need shade from the sun. They need a bench, right, to sit on. And so I think that it made sense to include these transit-oriented ideas because together it can really help catalyze, you know, the public transportation along with, you know, the local economy initiative. So, you know, I'll leave it at that, and I'll turn it over to the mayor. And I'm, again, really excited that, you know, we have this opportunity to act. And again, I'll reiterate the motion to, you know, include all these together, at the very least, consider them all together, and have a vote on all of them together. And of course, you know, discuss with my colleagues about the best way forward. So thank you to staff and thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor, staff, and Councilman Pacheco. I have a few questions and comments. My first one is just to clarify, the estimates that were provided are to amend the current fiscal year, but some of the recommendations seem like they sunset in December of this year. So is the idea that they would be reassessed when we do the budget for later, and this is only up until the end of this fiscal year?
So yeah, so basically all of the business related ones would be so 2021, I think, is what the proposal was. So the fee waivers would end in December of 2021. It would impact, they would all impact this year's revenues because well, all of the business license related ones would impact this year's revenue because business license is collected in February, March. So the next time we collect business license after this month will be February of 2022. So so waiving it, waiving the business license for 2021 impacts this year's budget. And so some of the doing payment plans really just affects timing of when we receive the funds. So, some of the funds might be received actually in 2021, but that's more of an accounting feature. From a budget standpoint, it's this year's budget that's impacted.
Okay, so the recommendation, from what I understood from you, Councilman Pacheco, is just to have these go into effect for this current fiscal year. And at that point, I'm assuming we reassess as a council.
Yeah, that would be staff's recommendation too. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you for that clarification. I am in full support of helping our businesses and residents. So I appreciate this whole package. I am really excited about, right, this interest repayment plan for the water bills. One, right, it's not going to affect our budgets, but also it pairs well with what we just approved in the previous item with the community development block grant. I think that the bus stops for me are like an outlier to this effort, and I recognize its importance. But I wonder if, especially with our next item, we're going to talk about goals. I'm curious, like, how just an overall effort to improve, right, all of the pieces of supporting local transit can go together as a package there versus kind of our COVID response, like updating our bus stops. And I'm just being candid, right? I just didn't see the connection as much with all of the other things that are seamlessly put together as something supporting, the impacts of COVID. The last thing I wanted to say was just, if we approve this, I just want to make sure we're managing expectations. And I believe putting it forward framed as a stimulus is not, it might be misleading because of, the federal effort to do a stimulus package and people really connecting it to this idea that they're going to get a check in the mail. And so I just want to make sure that we're not creating an expectation by, if we're calling it something, I would highly recommend we reconsider to make sure that people know what it is. But also, we've talked about the city of San Fernando, right, needing to do better public outreach, better just public engagement. And I think with the council, already having programs in place to address COVID through the relief funds, now putting forth resources through the block grant in the next fiscal year, and then offering this, I think they all go really well together as the city's COVID response and should be framed that way. And of course, with all the additional things, right, Nick, like not just on our website where someone can find it, but really promote it so people know what's there and how to access it. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Montanez.
Yeah, I think these are all pretty straightforward. Something that, we could all support. I would say, I would agree with the bus stops. Keep that, if it stays on the list, which I'm okay with because they do have to be improved, is just that we try to identify resources outside of the general fund, but grant resources to actually get us to upgrade and improve all of our bus stops. There's a lot of efforts with Metro and just planning across the county to focus in on the first mile, last miles to major transportation hubs, which, San Fernando has or will become as we look to the future. So I think it's okay if it stays on this list, but if we could prioritize that as one of the ones where we could actually try to go and get resources to supplement like any general fund impact. I think I see your point, Celeste, on the stimulus, right? That it's not big enough to call it a stimulus. So that's probably a good point that I would support. Like we just call it something different so that we do focus in on like the big stimulus efforts that will be coming from the federal level and at the state level. So I think that's kind of a small thing that we could just do right today. But overall, again, strongly support everything that we can do as a city to help out our residents and help out like our business community. So I would support all of these items.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kimball, for the presentation. You made it very clear, very understandable, easy to understand. I like, what's been presented, but I do agree with the rehab of the bus stops. I think it's more of a priority, as Councilmember Rodriguez mentioned. Unless, there's some items, maybe the trash cans. If it means it's related to COVID and keeping them clean, how often are they being cleaned? Who cleans them? Who's responsible for that part of it? And having the appropriate trash bins, because of course, making sure that whoever's using the metro, the bus stops, is putting their trash in a trash can, and that those are being cleaned and maintained. I think that part would be part of it. But I would like to see it as a project, as one of our priorities, possibly, and so that we can locate other funding for it in rehabilitating them. And also, I do agree with the stimulus, the term, the stimulus, because it's so easy to confuse. I know when I used to work, they wanted to change names of programs. And it would just confuse everyone. And they didn't know what they were applying for. They didn't have a full understanding. So I'm not sure what term we can use. I like the term stimulus because it's something that the city is doing for our businesses and our residents. And I'm really happy that everybody's going to, we're going to be able to support everyone in our community. Given that, that's all I have to say.
I like the idea of a sunset, and if we have to revisit that sunset date, I'm good with that. Councilmember Pacheco, do you have another term other than stimulus? And I think that Nick would like to say something. Yeah,
sure,
let's wait
Nick.
for
I mean,
him.
COVID relief, or to me, that's definitely just a branding, advertising thing. But ultimately, the more important thing is that we actually get the word out, right, and let people know. But yeah, I mean, we can call it whatever the consensus is.
So I've never been accused of being creative. So in maybe creativity is not always the best. Maybe we just say what it is, like fee waiver and payment support programs, like our COVID relief is just, these are our programs. But I think what I would recommend, again, is just maybe this is one of the things, since it's very tied to the CDBG, ad hoc, maybe the CDBG ad hoc, just kind of we work on creative ways. And if any of the council members think, something comes to them at one in the morning tonight, just email it over. But we can continue, and I have some really creative staff members that we'll reach out to. So I think that makes sense.
Okay, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Mendoza.
How about San Fernando COVID relief? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out so you can write it down.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Because it has San Fernando. They're going to know it's just for San Fernando, and then whatever.
Yeah. So
But I mean, make no mistake though. I mean, this will have a stimulative effect. We don't have to call it stimulus. That's perfectly fine. But the intent is definitely to kind of up the fuel here for our local economy. So
yeah, we need to do all we can to help our residents and our businesses. And great job once again to the ad hoc committee. So Nick, I need to ask you a question. Put yourself back on blast. So the ad hoc is going to, with staff, is going to come up with a real perfect name for this package. I'm going to second Councilmember Pacheco's motion. So what else do we have? Okay, go ahead.
If I can just summarize what I kind of received as direction, and maybe the motion can encompass this, is to direct staff to move forward with implementing all of the recommended stimulus programs, it sounded like with the exception of the bus stop immediately, with the exception of the bus stop program, which staff's directed to look for other other funding sources or other ways to fund that in the immediacy, and do some additional research on some of the more which bus stops need it the most, busiest, that type of thing. So and then also work with the CDBG ad hoc to come up with with the marketing piece of that, along with the CDBG programs that all kind of fit together.
Thank you. Councilmember Pacheco, are you good with that complete motion?
I think so. I just want to be clear. So there are three council members that want to put a pin in the bus stops for now. I mean, I know it was close, but because I do want to speak to the concerns. I mean, the trash, obviously, you guys have all heard me speak on it before. It's definitely the thing that is probably the most in need in terms of, making sure the bus stops have trash cans and shade and benches. But if we want to put a pin in that, we can remove it for now and maybe kick it to the ad hoc and see if we can work with staff, to find other resources. That's perfectly fine.
I didn't hear three council members put a pin on that. Maybe I heard two, but I didn't hear three. I supported you.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and take a vote on the entire thing then. And if not, we can, okay,
Yeah,
great.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yeah, I think perhaps what would be helpful is, Councilmember Mendoza, I think, pointed out something helpful, right? The trash and all the COVID related matters when it comes to the bus stops, I think would make sense to move forward now. So perhaps it's just amending it instead of it rehab of 6 bus stops, it's upgrades to respond to COVID at bus stops. And
Yeah,
I think
I
staff
mean,
can then
and the allocation. Yeah, the allocation is just, to make sure staff has, the resources to do that. I don't know, Mr. Kimball, if you want to chime in again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe this is where maybe that particular one could use some more clarification, because there are operating challenges there are the operating issues which don't require a significant capital investment of the trash and cleanliness and, making sure that they're painted, and then there's the capital portion, which is then, buying putting in shade structures, redoing concrete, buying a new bench, which obviously that usually takes time doing those capital it needs to be scheduled into our CIP. So maybe we can work with the ad hoc on what can immediately be addressed operationally versus what is it more of a capital project.
Sure. But I mean, Mayor, if you don't mind, I would still, and with your second, I would like to just take the vote on the entire thing. And if, not, we can. Is that okay?
Good. Yes.
Okay, great.
Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
yes, with, I think, understanding that the ad hoc is going to prioritize what can be done. Correct? I understood that correctly.
If I may, is the objective to implement these measures now, or to just sort of set priorities that are going to be formalized and finalized for formal action down the road? I think that might help with the motion.
Yes. So if I can just fill in the blank. So for clarity, all of the items listed in the staff report under general fund are all fee waivers, and they're all budget impacts. So the direction would be to come back in mid-year and include all those in the budget and implement those immediately. The only one that is not a fee waiver reduction is really just the bus stop program. What it seems like if I would capture it, it would be implement all of the programs immediately that are listed in the staff report. Bring back as part of the mid-year any budget adjustments that are needed, and then for the bus stops, it would still be implement work with the ad hoc to implement all of that, anything that can be implemented immediately, as well as look at the capital improvements that may be needed as well.
Well, we are making the allocation though, the $76,000.
You would, yeah. So in order to allocate something, we need to have a budget resolution. So we don't have a resolution tonight.
I see.
We could bring that back again through the mid-year to allocate those funds.
I see.
I don't know that we've that's allocating an expenditure rather than reducing a revenue. That's the one that has an expenditure increase. So that's the only reason why I think it's a little different than all of the other items in that they impacts expenditures. Again, we can bring that back, but it will have an impact on other things we can't fund out of Prop A and Prop C, because that's where we fund those improvements from.
I believe Councilmember Rodriguez and the Vice Mayor have a question. Councilmember Rodriguez, did you have an additional question?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. Vice Mayor Mendoza?
Yeah, just if the rehab of the bus stops is to put shading. I don't see it as part of COVID, and I think it needs to be part of a priority or other funding, you know. And we did discuss that not that long ago about we're discussing the types of benches we thought that we would like for those, right? Were those the ones we were referring to, or were they the trolley bus stops?
No, they're the trolley. All of these would be trolley bus stops.
The ones that we're talking about right now?
Yeah, so that was the part of the Prop A funds that the bus funds that council had the opportunity, and I believe this was more of the spring in the fall, but that you know, some of the council members wanted to reallocate, and I believe we are making upgrades to one of our trolley stops based on that direction from the fall. So, but it's, yeah,
we're going to do a few at a time, right? We're going to go kind of you know, just one at a time. So that
was the discussion at the time. Yeah,
that was the discussion. Yeah. So I believe it should be that part of it. The shading should be a priority.
So we may need to reformulate the motion.
Yeah, I need you to reformulate the motion, Councilmember Pacheco. And
Okay.
okay.
Why don't I move to direct staff to implement the all the items with the exception of the local transit support items to be discussed at a later time.
And I will second that. And roll call, please, again.
All right, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yeah, I don't want to complicate this. Yes, I just want to, as an aside note, I'm supportive of the local transit support to waive the transit fees. I just think the capital project should come separately, to my colleague's point, you know, as we prioritize other capital projects. So yes.
Okay.
Just for clarity, is that inclusive of the motion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember Montanez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Yes.
And Mayor Ballin.
Yes, the motion passes. And we are now on item 10, and it's 6:20, and we have to clear the room by 7 o'clock, Nick, is that it?
Yeah, so I was actually going to make a recommendation. You know, this item it's an important item, obviously, because this really helps staff kind of start the budget process and the development by getting feedback from all of the council members on what some of the priorities should be for the upcoming budget. That being said, we're trying to get it early this year, and we can start the discussion. If we don't finish the discussion, or if we can get through the staff presentations of potentially the recommended priorities, if we don't finish it tonight and want to re-agendize it for February 16th, that's fine. It doesn't throw off timing of any of the budget preparation. I just wanted to make sure that we had sufficient time during the budget, early in the budget process, to get some feedback on council priorities. So if you would like, we can move forward with the staff presentation. And if we don't finish this item by 6:45 or so, you know, we can always re-agendize it and come back on the next council meeting if council desires.
You know, I'd rather hear the entire agenda item at one time. So my preference is for us to hold off and add it to the next agenda. I like the flow of hearing that one agenda item, and this is an important one. It has to do with the budget, it has to do with priorities. And if you don't mind, can we carry it over? But I have to take the temperature of the room and see if the other council members, at least 2 others, are in agreement with me that we hold it over for the, when is the next meeting? I'm sorry, February what?
16th.
Tuesday, February 16th.
Yeah.
The 16th.
The Monday is a holiday, so it gets kicked to a Tuesday.
Oh, okay, very, very good. Councilmember Pacheco, where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I'm supportive of that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez?
I'm okay with what everyone else would like. I just have
Uh,
Nick would, if council, because there's more time, I wonder if you welcome council in giving some initial feedback to potentially update this. Not that we change your recommendations, but I just wonder if that just gives us more time to have a more fruitful conversation.
Yeah, that actually was going to be my recommendation. If between now and February 16th, since there's more time to absorb, yeah, please feel free to email me or have a discussion with me about some other things that you're very interested in, and we can even start a separate list or add it. Make
Okay,
some.
sounds good.
That
Thank
might
you.
be
I'm
more
supportive,
fruitful,
Mayor.
actually, yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Montanez?
I could be supportive of having it discussed at the next meeting.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Mendoza?
I'm good with the next meeting.
I think I've disappointed Diego. I'm sorry, Diego.
Wah-wah.
But I just think that we would rush it, and I prefer just the continuity of the discussion. And with that, where are we? Excuse me while I figure this all out. Oh, we are at okay, Richard, how do we officially do this? We are going
Well,
to,
you are privileged to do staff communications. That was unfinished business from the prior agenda. Or you
okay,
can
but I
disagree
don't
to
need to
adjourn. Yeah.
address that. We made a decision. We took a tally from the council members, and we will move this item over to the February 16th meeting. And with that, staff communications, including commission updates, and council member Pacheco. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, is that right? Staff communication? Oh, yeah,
Staff
they would
first.
give us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
staff
that's you,
first,
Nick.
council liaison next. So, Julian Venegas, Recreation Director, any staff communication?
Yes, just one. We're going to have the Park Wellness and Recreation Commission on next Tuesday, February 9th. One item that we're going to be discussing is the approval of the murals on public land. That's one of the items that will be discussed at that meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Chief Iro?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Just one item I'm going to bring to you next council meeting. Unfortunately, our current police dog is going to be medically retired due to an injury sustained during training. So I'm going to be bringing that to the council next council meeting, and for a purchase of a new dog through donated money. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
What's the name of our dog? That's sad.
Loki.
Loki. Oh, we will
Loki
miss
is
him.
7 years old, and unfortunately, we tried to get him through this medical issue, this injury, since about July of last year, and unfortunately, it just got to the point where, with his age at 7 years old and the cost and everything, it was just better just to retire him.
So,
Thank you.
but to be clear, retirement doesn't mean he's going to a farm in upstate New York. He's going to live with a family. So he'll still have a happy life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he will enjoy his retirement.
Yes.
Well, we love Miss Loki.
Thank you.
Matt, Public Works Director, Matt Baumgartner.
Yes, just real quick, we are restarting the mall closures along San Fernando Road between Brand and Maclay. The difference being this time around, we'll actually be closing Friday night and reopening on Sunday. And this was coordinated with the Mall Association. Their preference was to have Friday night and Saturday night open for the restaurants in that block. So we will be starting that this weekend.
Thank you. Finance Director Diego.
Good evening. Yes, we will be having our Measure A Town Hall meeting on February 22nd from 6 to 7 p.m. And that's all I have this time.
Thank you, Diego. Julia, City Clerk Julia Fritz.
Yes, I have a presentation coming to the next meeting, February 16th, for 2 students of the month. And that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. And then Deputy City Manager Tim Howe.
Mayor Ballin and council members, 2 quick updates for you. On Monday, February 8th, the Planning and Preservation Commission will be holding its regular meeting. 2 items for business are selection of officers
as well as staff will be providing just an update on recent legislative changes to accessory dwelling unit law. Second update is just a gentle reminder for select nominees for the Technical Advisory Committee for the Housing Element Update. Thank you to everyone who's provided nominees, and if you haven't yet, please send those to me as soon as possible. Residents are great. Non-residents that have some affiliation or interest in San Fernando are also great. Commissioners are also potential nominees, of course, subject to Brown Act limitations. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And if we can get those nominees back as soon as possible so that we can get that jump started, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And then lastly, I just have two announcements. One, probably tomorrow, I will be issuing an executive order extending all of the outdoor services that we had approved earlier as part of our COVID effort, outdoor dining, use of our parks and park facilities for businesses that want to do fitness classes. In our sign, we had a sign program that were all COVID related. Those the original executive orders expired on December 31st of 2020. And then since we were in additional economic restrictions, we were hoping we'd be done by then, but we weren't. So I'll be extending all of those programs that were all free programs for businesses that wanted to use that. We'll be extending those through June. That kind of goes with sort of the relief package, the San Fernando relief package. That will all be part of that as well. And then secondly, I just wanted to note there have been a lot of changes in the vaccination effort just this last week. The state actually announced that Blue Shield will be a third-party administrator that's going to be working on directing where those vaccines are distributed. Staff have been working hard with, we created an internal task force of staff this week to really work with a number of our local federally qualified health centers, Providence, Holy Cross, and some other partnerships that we've talked to this week, as well as local elected officials, to really try to get a focus on our San Fernando residents. So, things are in flux, but over the weekend, I'll put together a more comprehensive memo to all city council so you understand where we are and where we're going. I think we're making a lot of really good strides on getting some resources here. So those are the updates that staff has.
Thank you very much.
Quick question, if I can, Madam Mayor, yes. on the outdoor dining. Thank you, for extending that and working with the community. People love the outdoor dining, and so long term, do we have it on the scheduled anytime in the near future to agendize the issue to talk about more permanent outdoor dining?
Sure. Actually, it's outdoor dining has been allowed in the past. It just wasn't a program that, because it's so hot and it hasn't been very popular. But I think now this will actually make it more popular. We will definitely, I think, staff also enjoys the outdoor dining. Obviously, anytime you can kind of engage pedestrians is a great program. So, this obviously kickstarted everyone to actually put some regulations together. So it's definitely an effort that we'd like to, pursue beyond the, the COVID effort. So that will be upcoming.
And then thank you for all the work on the vaccinations. I can't wait till our 27,000 people get the vaccine.
I agree. Nick, one thing on the outdoor dining, I know the last time that people were doing outdoor dining, there was some table hopping going on, and the table hopper was not wearing masks, and there's more than one or three or four. And so their droplets are falling, obviously, on the people sitting down, trying to enjoy their meal, and those people are getting grossed out and worried because the table hopper is not wearing a mask. Would you emphasize that to the restaurants, that if someone gets up to go say hello, they have to wear a mask? Or the community member, just say something and you protect yourself, protect your family, and say, please wear a mask. I'm happy to speak to you, but where you're standing up here, I'm here, and your droplets are hitting me. these invisible droplets, and we never know who's carrying the virus. But I think it's just so important, and they're just how do you enjoy your meal when you have somebody come over and they just don't wear a mask and they're happy to see you, and we all are happy to see each other and engage in a social environment, but we have to do it in a safe manner, not in how we've done it in the past. So
yeah, and I encourage anyone, any residents out eating or has experiences something like that, to really report that to our code enforcement, either at codeenforcement@sfcity.org, or I believe, Tim, what's the number that people can call? It's 818. There we go. I'm trying to stall for him. I believe it's 818-898
1227.
1227. That's what I was going to say. I didn't want to get the wrong number. So we report it to that, and we'll have our code enforcement officer. If they'll definitely follow up with the business owner. If not immediately, if depending on what time it is the next day, so that the business owner understands there are very strict social distancing protocol that all businesses need to follow. So we'll just make sure that we're continually reminding folks that they do need to make sure that they're following all of these protocol.
Thank you very much. General council comment, board member comments, and liaison updates. Council member Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I had a really awesome meeting with my colleague, Councilmember Montañez, about trees and along Glen Oaks Boulevard. We are still making headway. We've identified a lot of great areas I think we might be splitting into two parts, but we're trying to be sensible and use our head about the best ways to go about this. We've identified how to maintain them and how to make them thrive. And I want to thank her, for all her expertise. I think, there's a lot of potential to really think big about urban forestry. I'm really looking forward to learning so much more about it from her. Secondly, I want to thank my colleagues for, passing some really good policy today. Democracy is often messy and nobody ever gets, everything that they want. But I think we made a strong step forward and a great down payment on these stimulative efforts. Bus stops are important to me. And it's unfortunate that we might not be able to make any headway before summer. Shade and benches and trash receptacles are very important, and they are very, very much related to public health. And I hope that, with the help of staff and, with, a little bit more vigor on my end and perhaps some more persuasion, we don't have to go one by one, but that we can think bigger and really try to, rethink the bus stops that so many of our low income people of color here in San Fernando rely on, our essential workers rely on to get to work, to get to daycare, and all those good things. But that being said, I want to commend the council for continuing in our efforts to fight this pandemic. I think last year we took a lot of great steps under Mayor Fajardo to start with things like meals, start with things like extended shopping hours for seniors at the grocery stores, these boxes of PPE, and I think we're only getting better. We're only getting more prudent and wiser in what we can do in our outreach. And so thank you to everybody. I'm really excited to take this to our community and say, check out what we did, and hopefully it might be a drop in the bucket to our budget, but hopefully it goes a long way, to, our businesses and our residents. So again, thank you. And I'll leave it at that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for your hard work and collaboration. Councilman Pacheco, we will all be supportive of doing bus stops. I really think you have the room. It's just that it would be wonderful to have that conversation even at our next meeting as we set our goals and priorities about how that fits into our overall infrastructure goals and priorities. I will defer to my colleague, Councilmember Montañez, for the ad hoc update for our safe and active streets effort. I just wanted to use this moment to ask my council colleagues to help promote a resource for our residents. As we know, tax season is upon us. I hope you're all thinking about it. You know, there's a lot of tax credits are available to our community based on their income. Anyone who's, you know, about 57,000 or less is eligible for probably potentially up to $10,000 in tax credits, which can mean cash in hand. And, you know, the theme for tonight, as we were passing all of these things, is how do we stimulate our economy? How do we support our residents and businesses? And this is one of those examples of resources that exist. We just need to connect people to it. So obviously in COVID, things look different. CSUN offers the VITA program to support people in preparing their taxes for free and accessing these tax credits. So Nick, I know, has reached out to CSUN so that we can get some digital advertising and start to promote it on our social media. But I ask all of you, my colleagues, to spread the word through all of your constituents and everyone that you speak to that this resource is available and they can connect to get this done and get some resources in hand really quickly. So that's all I wanted to share with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Montanez.
Okay, I mean, excited for this weekend that we could have restaurants, outdoor dining again. Being extra safe is clearly the most important thing, but I really do wish all of our restaurants a lot of success as they continue to reopen. And, you know, we as, you know, Mayor, as you were saying, we have to be really careful, right? We also have a responsibility as customers to wear our masks and follow the rules. Exactly what you said, so that we can make sure that our restaurants don't have to shut down again. But that's exciting. I've got plans, so we'll see everybody in town eating, I'm sure, or if not, at least order and have it delivered to your house or pick it up. So one of the things I do, and then Councilmember Pacheco, yes, I mean, just want to reiterate that, you know, the committee, ad hoc committee meeting was really great just to see the potential for us to kind of complete streets in some ways and help people have cooler environments and greener environments. And I just, I'm excited about what our Green Cities, you know, tree committee is gonna continue to do. Very briefly on the safe and active streets. I mean, I think at some point we'll give a deeper report, but Councilmember Rodriguez and I are on that ad hoc, a great discussion, super excited. This is the committee, the community advisory committee that people want to be on. It's anybody that walks, anybody that's a pedestrian, people that do use the bus, please participate. Lots of excitement. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And we're going to, you know, really do some like special planning for our streets long term. The last issue that I do just want to bring up again is just the homeless issue. It's just, oh, it's just heartbreaking, you know, and you're seeing like the homeless in our community just, you know, still out there, especially when it was raining and cold. It just broke my heart, you know, in the downtown and by St. Fernand's, you know, on the outskirts. I mean, just throughout town. So if we can just work together to see what we can do, and you see people collecting more items, and it just hurts to think like this is their home. This is not just a night that they're going to stay, right? They're you know, clearly that's home for a lot of people that live in our community. So I'd like for us to see what we can do. I know Councilmember Rodriguez, you've got a lot of experience in this area. And I really think that, you know, we have an opportunity to come up with some solutions. So the, you know, those inhumane conditions that people are living in doesn't spread in the city, but that we're able to address it.
Thank you.
At some point, you know, the staff could give us a report back, but us really develop like a plan of action.
Yeah, if I can I give a real quick update? Because I think sure. Timely update. So
I just wanted to recommend at the next council meeting that we agendize and maybe have an ad hoc committee comprised of Councilmember Montanez and Councilmember Rodriguez to come up with some recommendations. But go right ahead.
Yeah, I think that would be prudent because we actually do have funding to create a homeless plan. And I believe we have the RFP out now to hire a consultant. So an ad hoc would actually be really great timing because we'll want an ad hoc to work with, as you know, it's similar where we'll have we'll have stakeholder meetings and that type of thing. So I think that would be prudent, and we can give an update at the next meeting.
Okay, and at the agenda item to create this ad hoc at the next meeting. Vice Mayor Mendoza.
Okay, I have no liaison updates, but I do want to add that Mayor Bellin and myself went to Violet Vicuña's centenarian birthday parade this past Saturday, and we presented her with her certificate. She was sitting outside by her house on a big sofa chair that they brought out, filled with an arch of purple lavender balloons. Her nieces were there. It was a really exciting moment. She was really happy. Thank you to San Fernando, the police department, for starting off the parade with their sirens. It was really nice and very touching. She told me how much she loved the city and how proud she was to be a resident of San Fernando. It was really touching for me because Miss Vicuña, I learned from my sister, used to do my mother's hair. So it was like really touched my heart that, I was able to participate in this. And my family knows her and she knows my family. So it was just very nice. And I'd also like to thank staff for your reports, the updates. I jotted down all those dates so I can follow up on all the meetings that you've mentioned and all the work and the presentations. I think, and I'm really excited, we're going to have the ad hoc committee for the homeless. We're going to discuss shades and possibly upgrading our bus stops. I'm excited for those things and all the things that we've heard today. I think we're really working hard. Everyone's working hard, and I appreciate all the time and effort everyone's putting in. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, you forgot to mention something very special about our young lady that we were helping celebrate her 100th anniversary. She was the first woman to open up a business in the city of San Fernando, the first Latina in the city of San Fernando. And I know, Councilmember Montanez, you like history, but this is so historic. I mean, it was just so special to be there. We were getting emotional, Mary and I. So it was
that makes me emotional. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
The first woman to have a business in San Fernando.
The first woman and Latina to get a business license here in San Fernando, and she opened up a hair salon. And
Violet's Beauty Salon. I would remember.
So she started what we have, hair salons, bridal, quinceañera. She started it. She started the industry.
Everything. And her family is so wonderful. Just absolutely treated us royally. Just a beautiful, beautiful event. And so it was just great. And the PD, I just want to thank the three. I think there were like 6 officers and 3 cars that drove by. I videotaped it. I sent it to Nick, and I'm sure he shared it with the chief. It was just a special, special moment. And you don't even realize how something so small means so much to the community. Everyone was out there. They were applauding. They're so excited. And her nieces and nephews, the young nieces and nephews, what a great impression that the PD would do something so wonderful for the aunt, right? So anyway, I gotta hurry because our time's almost up. But I want to give an update on MWD. And I'm just going to be blunt. There's some ugly things going on at Metropolitan Water District. Charles Trevino, who represented the upper district, San Gabriel district, he was removed and replaced by another director on their board. And unfortunately, yesterday, Don Ortega was replaced. Although he had a 4-year appointment, he was replaced by a council member. It was so unfortunate. Don, as you know, Councilmember Montanez, he knows so much about water. He was an executive at MWD, and they appointed someone that doesn't know anything about water, but he was a council member and he felt like he should be the representative for Fullerton. And actually, I think it's a really bad decision. And I feel bad for Adon. I called in, I sent a letter in support. We had retired senior managers from Metropolitan call in for their support to reaffirm his appointment. Union representatives called in, and he did not get the votes because there's these absolutely ugly politics going on in the board right now. So I thought I would report that, and I understand the dynamics of their end game, and I'm going to fight like heck that they don't win. So I got to say, I'm going to keep it clean. And with that, look, Nick, I believe, Nick, we made it in time. So at this moment, we are adjourned. Did it. Thank you all very much. Great job.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night.